Forced to pay 18 years of child support for ex's affair, baby. Now she wants startup money too. You know how people say you should trust your gut? Yeah, I ignored mine for months, and now I'm paying for it. Literally. I remember the day Emma was born like it was yesterday. My ex, let's call her Catherine for the sake of this story, was so happy, holding her in the hospital bed with this huge smile. But the second I looked at Emma, this weird feeling hit me. She didn't look like me at all. Now, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but she had none of my features. Her hair was lighter, her skin tone was different, and I swear her eyes were a shade of blue that didn't come from anywhere in my family. But then I thought, whatever. Babies change as they grow, right? So I pushed it down. For a few weeks, I tried not to think too much about it, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. I mean, we've all heard those stories about people who thought the same thing, and it turns out they were just wrong, right? I tried to go with that idea. Maybe Emma would grow out of it, and one day I'd wake up, look at her, and be like, oh yeah, she's definitely mine. But deep down, something was gnawing at me. Catherine seemed different after Emma was born too. She was still sweet, still acting like everything was normal, but there were these moments where she just seemed distant. There were times when she'd catch me staring at Emma and get this strange look on her face, like she was hiding something. I'd ask if everything was okay, and she'd just brush it off, say she was tired or stressed. The usual new mom stuff. After 2 months of trying to ignore my suspicions, I couldn't take it anymore. I'd catch myself staring at Emma for way too long, analyzing every little feature, comparing her to the twins and Olivia. It just didn't add up. It was like this sinking feeling I couldn't shake. One night, while Catherine was asleep, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went through her phone. Now, I'm not proud of this. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who goes snooping through his wife's messages, but I was desperate, and that's when I found it. A message. It wasn't some love confession or anything, but it was just enough to set me off. There was a chat between her and some guy named Mark that was all sorts of flirty, with messages going back months, even before she was pregnant. I wasn't sure if this was Emma's father, but something about the whole thing just didn't sit right with me. I didn't confront her right away, though. I wanted proof. Real proof, because I knew Catherine would just deny it. So I waited a few more weeks, and that's when I did the paternity test. The twins had no idea, obviously, and Olivia was too young to notice something was off. I went to the clinic on my own, took the test, and had to sit on that secret for weeks. It was killing me, every second of it. I don't know if you've ever had to wait for results like that, but man, it's torture. Every day that went by, I felt more distant from Catherine. It was like I was living with a stranger. Every time she'd talk about Emma, this bitterness would rise up in my throat. I started avoiding eye contact, keeping conversations short, and spending more time at work. Honestly, part of me wanted the results to come back saying I was wrong, that I was just being a paranoid idiot. But when those results finally came in, it felt like my world just crashed. I remember opening the letter at home while Catherine was out shopping with the kids. It was just me in this envelope, and my hands were shaking like crazy. I opened it, skimmed over the technical jargon, and saw the words 0% probability. Emma wasn't mine. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I sat there for what felt like hours, just staring at those two words. 0% probability. All this time, I was raising a kid that wasn't even mine, and Catherine had known. She had to have known. I didn't even know what to do at that moment. Do I call her? Do I confront her when she gets home? Part of me wanted to pack a bag, leave, and never look back, but I couldn't do that to the twins or Olivia. So I waited. I waited until she got home, and that's when I finally confronted her. I remember it so clearly, like I'm replaying it in my head on a loop. She came in, bags in hand, chatting about some sales she hit up, and I just stood there in the kitchen waiting for her to stop talking. When she saw the look on my face, she knew something was wrong. She asked me, "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't even say anything at first. I just held up the letter. She didn't even need to read it. She knew. The color drained from her face, and she just stood there, frozen. Finally, she said, "It's not what you think." That's when I lost it. "Not what I think?" I shouted. "You've been lying to me for 2 months. Hell, probably longer. You knew Emma wasn't mine, didn't you?" She tried to deny it at first, giving me the whole I didn't know for sure speech, but I wasn't buying it. I kept pressing her, asking who the father was, and that's when she clammed up, refused to say a word about him. I was furious. I told her I wanted a divorce right there. No discussion, no second chances. It was over. After I dropped the whole divorce bomb on Catherine, things got messy real fast. I thought it'd be simple, split up, divide assets, move on with my life, but nah, she made it a living nightmare. Honestly, I think she just wanted to hurt me as much as possible. I was already feeling pretty messed up about Emma not being mine, but Catherine wasn't going to let me walk away that easy. First thing she did was lawyer up, and of course, she picked the nastiest lawyer she could find. The guy was known for dragging divorces out, making every little thing a fight. I wasn't prepared for that at all. I just wanted to be done, get some peace, but instead I found myself in the middle of this endless war. Every time I thought we were close to an agreement, she'd throw something new in my face. She wanted more money, more custody, more time with the twins. I was exhausted. I'll never forget the first court hearing. I walked in thinking, I got this. I had proof of her cheating. I had the paternity test. And I thought that'd be enough for the judge to see things my way. But nope. The second Catherine's lawyer opened his mouth, it was like everything flipped upside down. They started painting this picture of me as the bad guy, the unfit father, the one who abandoned Emma. They twisted every little thing, like the fact I moved to a different city after the divorce. Suddenly, I was disrupting the children's lives, making it hard for them to have stability. It was insane. I sat there listening to this, feeling like I was in some kind of alternate reality. I mean, I was the one who'd been lied to, cheated on, stuck paying for a kid that wasn't even mine. And somehow, they turned me into the villain. But here's the kicker. Wait, scratch that, can't say kicker. They didn't even care about Emma not being mine. The court didn't give a damn. Even with the paternity test, they ruled that since I was married to Catherine when Emma was born, I was still on the hook for child support. I tried to fight it, I really did, but it felt like every door I knocked on got slammed in my face. The legal system was a joke. What made it worse was Catherine's refusal to name Emma's real father. She just stood there, playing dumb, claiming it was some random fling, like she didn't know. I didn't buy that for a second. She knew exactly who he was, but she kept him hidden to protect her own ass. And meanwhile, I was stuck with the bill. The worst part, though, was the custody battle for the twins and Olivia. That cut deep. I had always been there for my kids. I loved them more than anything, and now Catherine was trying to take them away. She didn't care about what was best for them. This was all about control. She wanted to punish me for leaving her, and she was using the kids to do it. It was sick. I remember one hearing where her lawyer went off about how unstable I was, how I abandoned Emma and wasn't a fit father. I nearly lost it in that courtroom. I wanted to scream, I didn't abandon anyone. She's not even my kid. But of course I had to sit there, keep my cool, and let my lawyer do the talking. The whole thing felt like a losing battle from the start. It dragged on for months. Months of sleepless nights, stressing over every little detail, wondering if I'd ever get a fair shot. I tried to keep it together for the twins and Olivia, but even they could tell something was off. They'd ask me why I wasn't around as much, why I always seemed upset, and I didn't know how to explain it to them. How do you tell your kids that their mom is trying to take them away from you? Eventually, we came to some kind of agreement. I got 50-50th custody of the twins and Olivia, which was a win, I guess. But it didn't feel like a win. Not really. Every time I looked at Emma, I felt this pit in my stomach, like a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I didn't want to feel that way, but I couldn't help it. I tried to be civil for the kids' sake, but Catherine made it impossible. She'd send nasty texts, bring up old arguments, accuse me of being a terrible father. It never stopped. One day, after a particularly brutal court hearing, I was sitting in my car, just trying to breathe. I remember thinking, how the hell did I end up here? I'd always thought I'd be the kind of dad who was there for his kids no matter what, but this whole situation had me questioning everything. Was I doing the right thing by fighting for custody? Was I dragging the kids into a mess that wasn't their fault? But then I'd think about what Catherine was doing, how she was using the kids as pawns in this twisted game, and I knew I had to keep going. I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let her take them away from me, no matter how hard she tried. The twins and Olivia deserved better than that. Things eventually settled down a bit after the custody arrangement was finalized, but it never really went back to normal. I tried to move on with my life, but every time I saw Emma, that old bitterness would creep back in. I couldn't shake it. And the worst part? Catherine knew it. She'd find little ways to remind me, to twist the knife. Like when she'd drop the kids off and make some snide comment about how I should be grateful. I wasn't paying more in child support, or how I'd failed as a father by not loving Emma like I did the others. It was brutal. I tried not to let it get to me, but after a while, it wore me down. I started withdrawing, putting up walls. I didn't want to be around Catherine, didn't want to deal with her manipulative crap. I even started distancing myself from Emma, not because I didn't care about her, but because it was just too damn painful. I'd look at her and see all the lies, all the betrayal. It wasn't her fault, but I couldn't help it. At the end of the day, the divorce may have ended, But the damage didn't. Catherine had gotten what she wanted. Control, power, whatever you want to call it. And I was left picking up the pieces, trying to hold on to the little bit of my family I had left. Looking back, I don't know if there was anything I could have done differently. Maybe if I'd fought harder in court, maybe if I'd been more aggressive with the lawyers. But that's the thing about these situations. You can never really win. You just survive. And that's what I've been doing ever since. After the whole custody mess was finally settled, I thought maybe I could start moving on with my life. You know, just focus on the twins and Olivia, try to be the best dad I could be for them. But it wasn't as easy as I hoped. Every time I picked up the kids or dropped them off, there was always some sort of drama with Catherine. She just couldn't let things go, always finding a way to dig into me, bring up old wounds. For the first couple of years after the divorce, I barely saw Emma. She was living with Catherine full-time, and honestly, I didn't fight that. I know it sounds harsh, but after everything, it was hard to even look at her without feeling all this resentment bubbling up inside me. I mean, she wasn't my kid. I knew that. She probably knew that. And yet I was still paying child support for her every single month. It didn't sit right with me, and it made it damn near impossible to build any kind of relationship with her. There were a few times when I tried, though. I remember one Christmas when the twins were about 10. We'd set up this big holiday dinner at my place. Olivia was there too, and I figured, maybe it's time to make an effort with Emma. So I invited her even though part of me was hoping she wouldn't show up. Of course, Catherine had to make a big deal out of it. She dropped Emma off an hour late and came in with this whole smug look on her face, like she was doing me a favor by letting me spend time with her daughter. That pissed me off, but I bit my tongue. Emma was quiet the whole night, barely said 2 words to me. She sat there like she didn't want to be there, didn't want to be part of our family. The twins tried to include her, but it was awkward. She wasn't like them, didn't have the same interests, didn't share the same inside jokes. She was just there. When dinner was over, I drove her back to Catherine's, and the whole ride, Emma didn't say a single thing. I tried to start a conversation, asked her about school, friends, whatever, but I got nothing. Just one-word answers. I remember thinking, why am I even bothering? I was trying to make something happen that just wasn't there. And that was probably the last time I really tried. As the years went on, things between me and Emma stayed pretty much the same. Distant. We'd see each other on birthdays or during holidays when the kids would all be together, but that was it. Maybe we'd exchange a couple of awkward hellos or goodbyes, but there was no real connection. Catherine didn't help either. She'd always drop these passive-aggressive comments when she was around, saying stuff like, "Emma doesn't feel comfortable here," or, "You should really try harder with her for her sake." Like I hadn't already tried. The truth was, I didn't know how to be a dad to a kid that wasn't mine. I'd already spent all those years pouring everything into Olivia and the twins. They were my world, and I wasn't sure how to fit Emma into that, especially when Catherine was still pulling the strings behind the scenes. Every time Emma came over, it felt like she was a stranger in my own home. There was no bond there, no shared history. She was Catherine's daughter, not mine, and I couldn't shake that feeling. And then, there were the failed relationships. After the divorce, I tried dating again, but it didn't take long for me to realize I had trust issues the size of Mount Everest. I couldn't get past the betrayal. Every woman I met, I'd find myself second-guessing everything, reading too much into their texts, wondering if they were seeing someone else. It was exhausting for me and for them. I went through relationship after relationship, each one falling apart faster than the last. It got to a point where I just gave up. I remember one girl, we'll call her Sarah, who I thought maybe, just maybe, could be something serious. We'd been dating for about 6 months, and I was starting to let my guard down, thinking maybe I could actually move on from everything with Catherine. But then, one night, she left her phone on the table while she went to the bathroom, and I saw a message pop up from some guy named James. I didn't even hesitate. I grabbed the phone, scrolled through her messages, and sure enough, there were flirty texts going back and forth. I confronted her the second she came back, and she swore it was just a friend, nothing more. But by then, I didn't care. I was already done. I broke things off right there, and she stormed out, calling me every name in the book. I didn't blame her, really. I was damaged, and it was unfair to drag someone else into my mess. After that, I stopped trying. Figured it was easier to be alone than to keep getting hurt. That's how it was for a long time. Just me and the kids. I threw myself into work, trying to build something stable for the twins and Olivia. Every time Catherine asked for more money, I'd get more pissed off. I wasn't rolling in cash or anything, but she acted like I was some sort of ATM. ready to spit out euros on command. The worst part was, every time she'd ask, it wasn't even for the twins or Olivia. It was always for Emma. New clothes, school trips, some sports activity, whatever it was always Emma needs this or Emma needs that. I didn't have it in me to fight back every single time. So most of the time, I'd just send the money and try to move on. But it was always in the back of my mind, this nagging feeling that I was being taken advantage of, paying for a child that wasn't even mine. Catherine knew it too. She'd use Emma like some kind of bargaining chip, knowing that I couldn't say no without looking like the bad guy. Years passed, and before I knew it, Olivia was 14. She was growing up fast, and things were starting to get tense between her and Catherine. I didn't know the full story at the time, but one day, Olivia showed up at my doorstep with a suitcase, saying she couldn't live with her mom anymore. Apparently, they'd had this huge blow-up fight over money. Catherine was trying to take some savings Olivia had been putting away, and Olivia wasn't having it. I let her stay with me, of course, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Having Olivia around full-time again felt like a breath of fresh air. She was smart, independent, and she didn't let Catherine push her around. She stayed with me until she was 20, and during that time, we got closer than ever. But with Olivia living with me, things with Catherine got even worse. She hated that Olivia had chosen me over her, and she made sure to let me know it. The texts, the phone calls, they all got more frequent, more demanding. And every time it was the same thing. What about Emma? And that's when the real problem started. So, by the time Olivia was 20 and fully moved out, I thought the worst of the drama was behind me. I mean, I'd managed to get through the divorce, the custody fights, and all the constant battles with Catherine. The twins were off doing their thing, Olivia was thriving, and I was finally starting to feel like things were settling down. But of course, I should have known better. It all started with this text from Catherine. Now, I'd blocked her number a few times, but she always found a way to get a new one or use some random app to send messages. Anyway, she texted me one day saying something like, "We need to talk about Emma's future. It's time you stepped up as her father." I'm not even kidding. She actually said that, stepped up as her father. I was fuming. I didn't respond right away because I needed to cool down, but after a few days, I decided to call her. I figured I'd give her a chance to explain what the hell she was talking about. So, I call her up, and before I can even say a word, she launches into this whole spiel about how Emma's about to turn 18 and how it's time for me to start thinking about her financially. She starts comparing her to the twins and Olivia, saying how they each got their share of money when they graduated, and now it's Emma's turn. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "Wait, you're serious?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I was already losing it. "You expect me to just hand over money for a kid that isn't even mine?" Catherine didn't miss a beat. "She's been your daughter for 18 years, she said, all smug. "You've supported her all this time, and it's only fair she gets the same as the others. She's been through enough." Through enough? I thought. What about me? What about everything I'd been through because of her lies? I was speechless for a moment, but when I finally got my words together, I couldn't hold back. "She's not my daughter, Catherine. You've known that since the day she was born. I've already paid child support for years because the court forced me to. But that's over now. You can't expect me to just fork over thousands like nothing happened." She got real quiet for a second, and then she hit me with, "If you don't give her what she deserves, you'll be ruining her future. She's worked hard, and she's earned it. This isn't about me, it's about her." I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. "No," I said, feeling my blood boil. "This is exactly about you. You lied to me for years, made me raise a child that wasn't mine, and now you think I owe you more? You've got to be kidding me." And that's when she lost it. She started yelling, calling me a terrible father, saying how I was punishing Emma for something that wasn't her fault. And yeah, maybe she had a point there. Emma didn't choose this, but at the same time, neither did I. And I wasn't going to let Catherine guilt me into giving up more of my money. After that, I hung up on her. I couldn't take it anymore. But it didn't end there. Of course not. Catherine wasn't the type to just let things go. Over the next few weeks, she kept trying to get in touch with me. Calls, texts, even emails. All saying the same thing. Emma deserves her share. It's not fair to leave her out. One day, I'm sitting at home, finally relaxing after a long day at work, and my phone rings. I look at the caller ID, and it's Emma. I hadn't heard from her in a long time, so I was pretty surprised. I figured maybe she just wanted to catch up or talk about something unrelated to all this drama with her mom, but nope. The first thing she says when I pick up is, "Why aren't you giving me the money like you did for Olivia and the twins?" My heart sank. This wasn't Emma calling on her own, it was Catherine's doing, for sure. I could hear it in her voice, the same entitled attitude her mom always had. I didn't want to get into it with her, but I also wasn't going to lie. Emma, I said, trying to stay calm. I've already explained this to your mom. The money I saved was for my kids, and you, well, you're not my daughter. I'm sorry if that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. She didn't take it well. At all. Emma started crying, telling me how unfair it was, how she felt like I'd always treated her differently, like she wasn't part of the family. And honestly, that hit me harder than I expected. I mean, it wasn't her fault she was born into this situation. She'd been raised thinking I was her dad, and now, just as she was turning 18, she was finding out that wasn't true. I felt bad for her, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore what Catherine had done to me. I'm not trying to hurt you, Emma, I said, feeling this knot in my stomach. But your mom lied to me, for years. And now I can't just pretend like that didn't happen. I've done everything I was legally required to do, and I've paid for your upbringing, but I don't owe you more than that. She wasn't having it. She shouted something about how I was punishing her for her mom's mistakes, and how I'd never really loved her like I did the others. And you know what? She was right in a way. I didn't love her like I loved the others. How could I, knowing she wasn't mine? I tried to end the conversation there, but she kept going, talking about how she deserved the same as Olivia and the twins. She said she'd find a way to get the money from me, whether I liked it or not. That's when I realized just how far Catherine had poisoned her mind against me. I hung up, feeling this strange mix of guilt and anger. Part of me wanted to help Emma, but I knew deep down that I couldn't keep letting Catherine walk all over me. She'd already taken enough from me. My trust, my money, my peace of mind. I wasn't going to let her take more. Over the next few days, Catherine kept pushing. She even had some lawyer send me a letter, threatening to take me to court if I didn't give Emma the money. But I knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. The child support was done, and I'd already given more than enough. It felt like I was being ganged up on, not just by Catherine, but by Emma too. And while I could understand Emma's feelings, I couldn't let myself get dragged back into their mess. Not again. Not after everything I'd been through. So I blocked Catherine's number again and decided that was it. No more money, no more games. If Emma wanted to be mad at me, fine. But I wasn't going to keep paying for someone else's lies. And that was the beginning of the end with Emma. After blocking Catherine's number for what felt like the 100th time, I really thought that was it. I mean, I had made my position clear. No more money, no more manipulation. Emma had turned 18, and legally, my responsibilities were over. I'd paid child support for years, raised 3 amazing kids of my own, and done more than enough for a child that wasn't even mine. I was done. Or so I thought. But just when I thought things had finally quieted down, Catherine found a way to stir things up again. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was at home, relaxing for once. The twins were off with friends, Olivia was visiting from college, and we were all just hanging out, watching some stupid movie on Netflix. I hadn't heard from Emma since that last phone call, so I figured she'd finally accepted the situation. I was wrong. There was a knock on the door, and I had this gut feeling it was them. I don't know why, but I just knew it was Catherine and Emma. I wasn't in the mood for more drama, but I couldn't exactly ignore the door either. Olivia glanced at me like, "Are you going to get that?" So I got up, sighed, and opened the door, and there they were. Catherine, with her smug little smile, and Emma, standing there looking pissed off. "Can we come in?" Catherine said, as if this was a friendly visit. "No," I said, crossing my arms. "We can talk right here." Catherine looked like she was about to argue, but then she just shrugged. "Fine. We won't take long. We're here to talk about Emma's future." I already knew where this was going, but I let her talk. She launched into this whole speech about how Emma had been accepted into some university and how she needed money for tuition, living expenses, and everything else. Catherine even had the nerve to pull out a printed list of all the costs, like I was just going to write a check on the spot. "I told you already," I said, cutting her off. "I'm not giving Emma any money. I've paid enough over the years, and I'm not paying for her college. That's not my responsibility." Emma, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. "So you're just going to abandon me? Again?" Her words hit me harder than I expected. I knew she was angry, but hearing it from her directly made me feel like the bad guy all over again, but I had to stand my ground. "I'm not abandoning you, Emma," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I'm not your father. You've known that for a while now. I've done my part. I've paid what the court ordered, but I don't owe you anything beyond that. If you need money for college, your mom can help you. Or you can get a loan, like most people do." Emma's face twisted in anger. "It's not fair. You gave the twins and Olivia money for school, and now you're just cutting me off because I'm not yours? That's messed up. And yeah, maybe it was messed up, but I wasn't going to keep paying for Catherine's lies. I gave money to my kids, I said, emphasizing the word my. That money was for them because they're my responsibility. You're not my responsibility, Emma. I'm sorry if that hurts, but it's the truth. That's when Catherine decided to jump in. You're such a selfish bastard, you know that? You've raised Emma for 18 years and now you're just throwing her away because she's not biologically yours? What kind of father does that? I could feel my blood pressure rising. Catherine was the last person who should be lecturing me on what kind of father I was. You've got a lot of nerve, Catherine, I snapped. You're the one who lied to me for years. You're the one who cheated, who kept me in the dark, and now you want to act like I'm the villain? You created this mess, not me. Catherine just shook her head, like she was the victim in all this. I didn't know for sure, okay? It wasn't like I was trying to hurt you. That was her excuse. She didn't know for sure, as if that made everything better. I was so done with her lies. Get out, I said, stepping back to close the door. I'm not having this conversation anymore. Emma looked at me with tears in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. Catherine, on the other hand, wasn't going down without a fight. You're going to regret this, she hissed. When Emma's successful and you're alone, you'll wish you'd done the right thing. I slammed the door in her face before she could say anything else. I didn't care what she had to say anymore. I was tired of being manipulated, tired of being the bad guy in a situation I didn't create. When I went back inside, Olivia was sitting on the couch, watching me with this concerned look. Everything okay? She asked, even though she already knew the answer. Yeah, I said, collapsing onto the couch. It's fine, just more of the same. Olivia didn't push me for details. She never did. She understood what I'd been through better than anyone. We sat there in silence for a while, just watching the movie, but I couldn't focus on it. My mind was racing, replaying everything that had just happened. I knew Emma was hurting, and a part of me felt bad for her. She didn't ask to be born into this situation, and she didn't deserve to feel abandoned. But at the same time, I couldn't keep sacrificing my own sanity for her. I couldn't keep letting Catherine drag me down, using Emma as a pawn in her twisted game. In the end, I had to choose my own peace. I had to protect myself from getting sucked back into that toxic mess. I'd done enough, more than enough, and it was time for Catherine and Emma to figure things out on their own. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that Emma had gotten into school with a scholarship and some financial aid. She was doing fine without my money, just like I knew she would. Catherine had tried to make it seem like I was the only thing standing between Emma and failure, but that wasn't true. Emma was strong, smart, and capable. She didn't need me. Not really. And as for Catherine, well, I haven't heard from her since. Hopefully that means she's finally realized that I'm not her safety net anymore. She's going to have to face the consequences of her actions, whether she likes it or not. I'm not going to lie and say everything's perfect now. I still think about Emma sometimes. Wonder if I could have handled things differently. But in the end, I did what I had to do to protect myself. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm finally free.